Hello, everyone. Just wanted to make a video as this is our final week. Our course, our course is wrapping up, um, and we're learning about logical fallacies. So I wanted to make a video today and show you, sort of go over some of my notes on logical fallacies that I think might help you as you are doing your final assignment on them and participating in the discussion. So let me share my screen with you real quick. Maybe share my screen with you. There we go. Okay, so here's our announcement for the week. We have our discussion, obviously running from Wednesday through Sunday. Remember, try to get your first posts in by the end of the day today on Friday in order to get full credit. And then we have the final assignment, which is the final paper fallacy assignment. So the paper assignment is going to ask you to read over one of a few different articles and then sort of analyze that article, do a rhetorical analysis where you analyze that article looking for fallacies and thinking about whether or not those fallacies were used intentionally or if they're just sort of gaps in the logic or what's going on exactly. And so to help you with that, I want to share my screen again in a second and go over just sort of generalized, not general, but just a list of some of the more common fallacies and give you my kind of casual explanation of how they occur. So first off, you should be looking at a Word document here right now. If for some reason you're not, I will upload this with the video to the announcements so that you can see it and follow along in case I screwed up my video. So fallacies are logically flawed arguments. And sometimes authors use them on purpose, or orators, speakers use them on purpose. And sometimes they're used on accident because we just don't recognize the flaw in our logic or what we're saying. But part of the reason that they're used on purpose is because a lot of the times they are very persuasive. They are more persuasive than the truth. And it's because of that we see fallacies in advertisements all the time. So I want to go over some of the more obvious or I guess common fallacies, starting with ad hominem. So ad hominem, it's a Latin expression. It means to the man. And basically this is the idea that when a speaker or an essay or a writer is attacking another speaker or another essay or another writer instead of the ideas of that person. So my example here is insert political leader is an idiot. His plan can never work. I didn't say anything about his plan. I just attacked his character or his mental state, in which case, or her mental state, or whatever, in which case, I'm not actually, that's not really an argument. It's no different than, it's childish almost. It's addressing the wrong thing, right? So again, it's ad hominem is when you kind of make an argument that is saying this particular person can't possibly know what they're talking about because they're that type of person. I'll leave it up to you to fill in those blanks, right? You can get the idea of how this kind of comes off nasty. It's interesting how it's been, or how it could be used, I guess. The second one is ad populum. Ad populum is Latin for to the people. And we use this one a lot more often, or you see this one a lot more often. You'll hear this one with we just kind of rely on it. Like our brains like it. And it's basically the idea that everyone is doing it, or the majority is doing it, or lots of people are doing it, therefore lots of people think this, therefore it must be true or it must be good. It could be possible that something is true and lots of people believe in it, but lots of people believing in something does not make it true, or lots of people thinking something is good does not make it good, or lots of people thinking something is bad does not make it bad, right? And yet, as we've kind of talked about throughout the whole course, we people like fitting in. We like being part of the group. So ad populum arguments can be persuasive. They sound good. 9 out of 10 dentists think Crest is the best toothpaste. Nothing about that makes Crest the best toothpaste. Not at all. It could be the best toothpaste, but the fact that 9 out of 10 dentists think so doesn't actually make it so. So that's kind of how that one's working. Then we have appeal to false authority. This is just when an argument relies on the expertise of someone who isn't really an expert. So my example here is like LeBron James saying his shoes are the best. He's not an expert on shoes or feet, I guess. It's not really the best example, but the idea is we see these in advertisements a lot where an athlete or a celebrity is trying to tell us that this is the best product. They're telling you that because they got paid. Simple as that. Somebody else paid them to do it. They tell you their product's better. Then we move on to circular reasoning. And this is where fallacies get interesting. Circular reasoning is this idea that sort of the premise only works with the conclusion, but the conclusion only works with the premise, and it kind of goes in a circle. So I said mathematically, you can sort of think of it as like x equals y, therefore y equals x, but they're like dependent upon each other, right? So my example is I'm an A student, you can't give me a C. Well, you're only an A student if I don't give you a C, and if I give you a C, then you're no longer an A student. Make sense? I think we're really good at circular reasoning our own brains, like our own, or at least I am. Like I'll talk myself into these kind of circles before I realize my argument is based on the premise, but the premise is based on the argument, and it kind of doesn't work. Then we have a false dilemma. This is one that we love to use. Our brains love false dilemmas. The reason is, a false dilemma is when we take like a complex topic and we shrink it down to 2 options. Either we go to war or we are cowards. Either you get 100 on my test or you fail my class. In these cases, there are lots of other options available. I would assume that we like things simple. We like to take complex, rhizomatic, crazy complex things that have millions of different facets and components. Like to take, for my first example here, either we go to war or we look like cowards. Take a complex global political issue and shrink it down into a yes or no, on or off, black or white scenario. It's not really a possible thing. It doesn't work that easily, and yet it would be so nice if we could handle global politics with yes or no, right? Faulty analogy. Faulty analogy is like when you compare 2 things that can't really be compared. I think a lot of times when writers are trying to be flourishing with their craft, they'll use like similes and metaphors where they're comparing things that can't really be compared. My example here is just the idea of like, I know how to drive a car, so I can definitely fly a helicopter. Yes, they are both vehicles of some kind, but I can't really compare my experience driving a car to the experience flying a helicopter. Number 7 is a hasty generalization. This is just a fallacy in which the conclusion is based on inadequate evidence. So my example here is I know one guy who smoked cigarettes his whole life and never got cancer, therefore smoking doesn't cause cancer. It's like when you take too small of a sample size and then apply that information or apply the conclusion based on that small sample to a larger topic, to a larger audience, to a larger subject, I guess. And then finally, my favorite fallacy, if you can have a favorite fallacy, is post hoc ergo propter hoc, which again is Latin. Thank you, Aristotle. Meaning after which, therefore because of which. So basically, this is just a faulty cause and effect relationship. So because I spilled coffee on myself at breakfast, I failed my math exam. I guess there could potentially be a scenario in which that is possible, but even then it would be like a whole series of events would have had to occur, right? But we like to think this way. Again, I think if you're anything like me, your brain will do this sometimes. You're like, oh, this bad thing is happening to me because I did that thing yesterday, right? We try to like find meaning in this way, but it's a logical fallacy. So those are some of the most common logical fallacies. I strongly encourage you as you're writing your paper to just maybe look for a couple of these in the article you're reading, explain how the fallacy works, what it is, how it's working in that essay, and then whether or not you think the author is doing it on purpose. It is entirely possible, for example, with something like a false dilemma, in order that trying to explain the very large concept of whatever an author's talking about to an audience might not really be possible, but shrinking it down into an easy, like, you either do this or you do that. Well, I can read that in 30 seconds while I'm drinking my coffee in the morning, scanning the news, and the author might persuade me that way. So that's the idea. I hope this video helps you guys. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll post the file along with the video. Just wanted to close by saying, please, please, please get the course survey done if you haven't already. And then thank you so much for a great semester, a great class. I hope you guys enjoyed. Take care. If you need anything, let me know.